Good morning to Representative Tim Griffin. He's here to talk to us about the House Energy Action Team. Good morning, Representative Griffin.
Good morning.
Appreciate
How you doing?
I'm good, Congressman. We appreciate you joining us. Well,
sure.
The House Energy Action Team was formed recently. Tell everyone what it's about.
Well, there are a number of us, just a sort of a small group of members in the House that have been pulled together to help communicate, talk with folks about what we've been doing in the House over the last year and what we're continuing to do to try to impact energy prices, gas prices. I think we all recognize that there's not one button that we can push, not one thing we can do to just immediately fix the rising gas prices. But there are things that we can do, not one thing, but a number of things. One of those is to increase supply, and whether it be improving the Keystone Pipeline, or we've got some reforms that relate to regulation of refineries, which, I toured the Line Oil Refinery in El Dorado about a month ago, and I was shocked to learn that we haven't had a new refinery in this country in decades. And it's because of over-regulation. No company wants to spend years and years and years and years and years going through the regulatory hurdles to get one online. Nobody's against regulation, but I think sometimes we go overboard while China and India are building new ones, and so there are things that we can be doing, and we're not doing all we can do, and we're trying to encourage this House Action Team is trying to communicate with the public and try to put pressure on the president and other lawmakers to do some of this stuff, expand drilling, and just be more reliant on our own energy here in this country instead of buying so much energy from countries where, frankly, a lot of them don't like us. And so that's what our focus is.
There's some who say that the president and even the Congress can't really do very much about the price of gasoline. Is that accurate?
I don't believe it is accurate. Look, the president talks about reducing prices of gasoline by reducing demand. If you believe that reducing demand will reduce the price, then you've conversely got to believe that increasing supply will reduce the price. I think a lot of people say, you can't do anything overnight, you can't do anything today. Well, the problem is we've been saying that for years. 10 years ago, there were votes on expanding drilling in Alaska, and a few folks in the Senate blocked it. And a lot of them were saying, well, it's going to take 10 years. Well, now, 10 years later, don't we wish we would have started? The other thing are all the jobs. The more we can explore for energy in this country, the more jobs that we will have here. Think of the billions and billions and billions of dollars that we send overseas when we buy their energy. We are building schools for them with our money. We are supporting their economy. We are expanding their economy, and we ought to keep that money here. We've got abundant natural gas here in Arkansas, and there are a lot of federal lands that have oil and gas deposits where we could be drilling. So the idea that there's nothing we can do, that's just nonsense. I just don't believe it. I do wish a president, this one or the next one, would give a speech sort of like Kennedy's going to the moon speech, where he just says, look, we're going to make this a national priority in the next 10 years or whatever, and by X year, we're going to be energy independent. We could do that if we put our mind to it. I think we need a goal like that. We need leadership on that level on this issue, because I tell you, We've been talking about this for decades. I've got an old, my grandma used to live in Magnolia, and I've got an old piece of literature that she got in the mail in the late 70s or 1980. I think it was a Reagan political literature, and it talked about energy independence then. We always talk about it. We need to do something about it.
You know, a lot of people are with you when it comes to that. There's no question that it's been a problem for the country for a very long time. But also, a lot of people believe that the oil industry itself could do a few things. We, at the moment, if I am correct here, we have a plentiful supply of oil in the country at the moment, and the consumption of that product is down, I suppose, as a result of the cost. And yet the oil industry is being subsidized by the federal government. Do you support the oil subsidy?
Well, you call them subsidies. A lot of them are the same manufacturing tax breaks that other companies get. You know, so I would say this: I am all for fundamental tax reform that gets rid of a bunch of these so-called subsidies. They're really deductions, credits that number of manufacturing companies get. I'm all for that. I have voted for tax reform in the House that lowers rates and reduces a bunch of these loopholes to make us competitive. What the president talks about doing is singling out one industry and purely for political gain, because he knows it's not going to happen. And that's what this whole deal with singling out just the oil industry. You know, it's funny, you don't hear people saying, well, you know, Microsoft is making so much money on these iPads. Why don't we go after them? I mean, I just don't think it makes sense at a time when we have rising energy prices in a global economy to say we're going to leave all the tax incentives in place for everybody except for this one industry. I think we need to get rid of a bunch of these loopholes for a bunch of industries, and to be frank, on the individual tax side too, and reduce the rates through fundamental tax reform. Here's the thing, Bob. The president loves to talk about this. He loves to talk about the oil industry. He'll talk about it every time he can. Tim Griffin and many others in the House have put our money where our mouth is. Last year, we voted in our budget for fundamental tax reform that would do a lot of what he talks about. And this year, about 2 weeks ago, I voted for a budget that would reduce rates and would close a bunch of loopholes. And so, look, I'm all for that. The problem is when the president talks about it, he's not talking about actually doing anything. He's talking about political posturing. I'm talking about a fundamental reform of the tax code that will help our businesses compete. There are a lot of things we can be doing, but to try to divert attention from the fact that this president has at every turn stopped the Keystone Pipeline or tried to slow it down and has not allowed drilling on federal lands where we need it, and has stopped drilling in places where we had drilling years ago. You know, that's all it is an attempt to divert.
All right.
But
we're going to have to run, but we appreciate very much you joining us, Representative Griffin.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a great weekend. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you, sir.